I feel like we have a family in our authors and in this group. And you've done that. You've brought us all together. And you've made it possible for people to share their stories in a way that will actually change the world.
There's this quote that says, "We live our lives forwards, but we understand it in reverse." It helped me to understand and to see how grief helped me, or actually hindered some of my decisions walking through life.
The journey of reconnecting with the voice, the spirit, the essence of that time of my life helped me to get to know myself in really surprising, welcoming ways. I was able to retrieve the gifts and the contributions of this younger part of myself, and I feel her grounded and expressed in my life now through writing this story. It was really beautiful.
When you read my story, or if you've read my story, there is a lot of grief and loss and tragedy. You know, even from birth, my mom was homeless, and I dropped out of high school while being pregnant. And I did lose a child later on, and then almost lost my own life and went through a divorce. Just a lot of risk factors and not a whole lot of protective factors. So your journey doesn't have to look the way you think it's going to look, or it's not okay that you suffered this trauma, but it can be okay.
I believe in life we have circumstances that happen that can really allow us to pressure test our beliefs. And oftentimes these events invite us to answer the question, conform or be rejected. My chapter in Born to Rise tells of a particularly uncomfortable story. It was the first time that I was faced with the very real fear of, will I get kicked out of the church over this? And for the good Christian girl who wore her faith on her sleeve and hinged her whole existence around being a Jesus freak, it was a choice I never wanted to make.
Think about in your life right now, all of the things that maybe you would consider to be failures. Did it or did it not really turn you in the right direction to be exactly where you are now? And that's the thing that really this big kind of crashing down of my life taught me was, Portia, you've got no freaking clue. So maybe the work that there is to do, rather than striving, is to sit down and figure out how you actually tick. What do I like? What don't I like? What do I look like when I'm in peril? One of the things I had to discover for myself was, Portia, what do you look like when you're rested? Taking the time to understand the way that you work, the way that you think, the way that you thrive makes all the difference.
I was really making decisions based on how it affected others and not necessarily me. And I really didn't know who I was, and I didn't know maybe what I stood for, because that could change if somebody else had something that was more pressing or more important. So I had to do the work. And I had to build that foundation so that no one person, event, or situation could crumble it. Because you see, I had had a lot of devastating losses in my lifetime. And if any of you have been there, you'll recognize that it takes a very long time to rebuild. And it's very, very painful. And in doing that, I recognized that I was spending a lot of time in those masculine energies of pushing, doing, and striving. And I needed to actually balance that with more of those feminine qualities of receiving, taking breaks, resting. And that led me to developing a self-care practice that helps me stay in balance and in alignment. Because when I am out of balance and out of alignment, I get sick very easily. I tend to overwork. And when that happens, then I really can't do the things that light me up, which is to be there for others. That's my joy.
My whole life, I found myself hiding who I was for the benefit of everybody else. And I locked in on this notion of labels. And so for myself, I had struggled with having a label my whole life. And then I had two amazing, beautiful daughters. And I watched them live life without fear. And if they have fear, you never knew it. because they are living their life in their most authentic way, just being who they are. And even if they haven't realized entirely who they are on the path to finding themselves in a way that was so beautiful that I never felt like I could experience. So why the story? Because for the first time in my life, I want to live my life authentically.
I'm just so impressed by her and everything that she's been able to overcome. Not because what you go through isn't what defines you, it's what you do with it and how you overcome it. So just seeing where she came from and seeing how she got to where she came from today, I've always said to her, the one thing I hope for my future as I'm approaching college is that I turn into somewhat of a role model that she became for me.
My music is still here, and that's where I decided to go, even though I have to take medicine that keeps me alive. So even if you have an illness, but you also have something that makes you feel good, that's where I want to focus. Not on my illness, not on the fact that I have to take medicine, not that I have to, have that define me, because it doesn't. What defines me is what makes me happy. And that's the way I want to live.
I didn't realize how much that I needed to be healed. And I didn't realize the moment that maybe my medicine was this one note in a paper bag at lunch. And it was just like a moment that I think about way more often than I think I ever expected to. It was my first day of school, and she said, "Here's your lunch." And I said, "I normally get free lunch." She said, "No, I made this one special for you." And I just went to lunchroom, and at school just expected it to be a sandwich, and she just had a really beautiful note just wishing that I had the best first day. And I didn't think that I needed that. And I didn't think that I needed that healing until I read that note. So thank you for being part of that medicine.
Experience has brought me joy. It has supported me in understanding how my experiences have healed me. Because, an experience is neither good nor bad. It's how we look at it. So this has helped me and helped others to maintain positive expectancy along in the journey, and to appreciate and share. And it's been so much fun.
Said this is it, because I felt it in my bones. I felt that this was a story to tell. And that's really, it was scary to do that, but it was also really healing to be able to say, I think this is really the one that I want to inspire other people with. And so this was a really amazing and incredible experience, because I felt like at the end of it, I came out being able to know I'm really well loved, to know that I could do something that wasn't easy for me, that I could keep going until I felt like I got there. And as I'm talking, I still have chills all over my body, so I know I've done the right thing.
What I learned from a conversation with a stranger is that, of course, my story means something, but it doesn't have to mean everything. For me, it rippled into tidal waves of healing, of pain, of love, of joy, of opportunities, all of that. But it also helped me see how deep the ocean is, how you can't put an end date on grief or heartbreak or healing. It's not something that you throw on a checklist and cross off. You laugh, you cry, you heal, you hurt. You feel the full spectrum as often and for as long as you need to. And I don't have to be ashamed of that.
Leaving my classroom allowed me to find myself again. I was able to leave the Mrs. Gallo mask behind, the Mrs. Gallo mask that I wore very, very well. And I was able to find myself again. And with the support of my friends and my family and the people that are around me, I was able to reconnect with who I was. Which brings me back to Iceland. When we were in Iceland and we were on that walk, and I sat down, I recognized that I felt fully whole, I felt fully complete, I felt completely alive, and I felt like me. I knew that I was Christine, Mrs. Gallo. She's in the past, and I'm Christine, and I'm here, and I'm alive, and I chose to be this way.
I just want to speak to the level of incredible transformation that has happened within this container. Like what you're seeing tonight is the culmination of 8 months of work and 8 months of joy and tears and not a little bit of frustration and not a little bit of people really coming face to face with their fears around visibility, around being all of who they are, around stepping into this next level of serving, of teaching, of leading, of influencing. And every single one of them broke through that barrier. It was a beautiful evolution. And so we truly believe that everyone has a transformational story to tell. The deciding factor for a project like this is the readiness to look at our lives and say, I learned something that can help someone. I learned something that the world needs to know. This is a perspective that will change minds or change lives. So that's where we started.
We are going to do another book. We have heard from the His of history for a very long time, and those stories are very important. We are trying to balance those stories that we hear in history and create a legacy for people coming after us who want to know what it was like in 2023. A time when women can start talking about compassion, empathy, community, gathering, all of those pieces of our humanness that exists in all of us, but really hasn't been shared from women's voices. But I believe that those voices are for everyone. They're not just for women, they're just from women. But it's our time to be able to come together as men and women, black and white, straight, gay, whatever it might be, to share our stories so we begin to really understand one another on a level where we can have compassion and empathy and say, you do you. As long as you're not hurting anybody, you do you, and then I'm given that space to do me.